Do I think it's the best 350 out there at the moment for the money? Right, hello everybody. So it's that time when the Bantam's got to go back, and I'm quite looking forward to the ride back here. I've got to take it back to Coventry, but I thought I'd give you my my final thoughts on this bike, my likes and dislikes as such, but also where I think it sits now in the world of these small retro 350s, because my view is that I think this is possibly the best retro 350 out there for the money and all the rest of it, but we'll come back into that. So let's have a stop and a look at the bike, and I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then we're going to do a ride and I'll give you my final opinion on it. Come on, let's go do that. Right, so one of my final thoughts is, I've been riding around this now for a couple of weeks, and I've got to say I really enjoyed it. Do you know what the thing about this bike is one, it's the size. It feels like a full-size motorbike. I don't feel like I'm riding a 350 or a small capacity bike. And I think the overriding thing is that, which sort of assists that, if you like, is the engine. That extra bit of power at the engine, I know it's only sort of like 9 or 10 horsepower, but it makes a huge difference. And I feel like I've got enough power to, get up them hills and do them overtakes. And, I've been doing overtakes on this bike, on some of them A roads and stuff, and I don't feel concerned that I'm going to run out of steam, which is such an important thing. And I think this is where it scores so much over some of the other 350s, is that when you look at, say, the GB 350, I think they missed a trick there when they basically gave you the same engine power as the classic 350 or the J series engines. If they'd have just boosted it a bit, come up the scale, they must have had so many engines that they could have chosen from that you think that when something like this came along, they were already starting on the back foot a little bit. I know that the Honda's been incredibly successful. It's a fantastic bike. But I think when this came along, I think BSA had their problems with their past reputation, if you like. But I think this is starting to eat into that in big chunks. And I think people are seeing this as actually a really good bike. Can you imagine if BSA had started with this rather than the Gold Star, where we'd be now? So I think in terms of how it makes me feel, as you know, I say that's always quite important, how it makes you feel when I get on this bike. I just think it feels like a big bike. I feel like it gives me that sort of sense that I don't look too big on it. No comments, please, on that. But you know what I mean? It just feels like well proportioned for me. And that engine just drives this along so well. And I've had no issue with throttles, gear changes, anything like that. It just bloody works really, really well. I think the looks as well. I think for some of the colours just don't work, but that's personal taste. And if you like red, you like red. For me, the black and the yellow and silver, I think, are phenomenal looking bikes. What do I not like about this bike? And I will explain a bit more as we have a little ride around later. I think the clock is still, it's just a shame I just think they could have done so much more. They could have gone really simple, couldn't they, without going with the LCD and RCD. Just put an analog clock on there, with a couple of warning lights on it. But that is what it is. At the end of the day, you're still running a bike which is $3,500. When you start requesting higher spec or sort of better quality parts, the price goes up. And I think it's something I could live with. It probably get slightly annoying, but you can see the speed. I think where a problem comes when you wear sunglasses, and that sort of sometimes that polarizing effect just affects the clock. The other thing which I'll mention on the road is the mirrors, but I'll leave that to when we go around. But in terms of things like brakes and the suspension in particular, I think the suspension's great. When you compared it to the Hunter, with the Hunter is still quite fierce, even after 5,000-6,000 miles we got on our Hunter. This is great out the box. I don't know what it'll be like in 5,000 or 6,000 miles. It might be a bit sloppy, mightn't it? But it's quite relatively simple enough on these bikes that you can swap them out. You know, you can put it to how you want it. But I think looks-wise, handling, and just the overall presence of the bike and ride, it just feels really fantastic. What I find interesting though is that although this is sold in, I think this was the best-selling bike last year, or a certain period, I don't know, or certain best-selling bike in its class. I don't think I've ever seen another one on the road. This is the only one I've seen. I think there's more of them up north. I think that may be because of the lack of dealers down here. You know, the only dealer I know is not even in my area is PK Sports. So, you know, check them out and give them a look. But they're way down in sort of Heathfield way. So it's still a long way. It's still another sort of 40 miles from me, I think. And it's like a wasteland for BSA dealers. I'm just hoping that as this becomes, you know, as BSA improve their reputation and we're going to get a Thunderbolt, we're going to get the 2 or 3 other bikes on this platform, that the dealers will start to come back in. Hopefully they'll see that the support and everything is better. But this is proving itself to be a fantastic little bike. And as I said, I've not really seen anything bad on any channels or anywhere, or publicity saying that they've had problems with these. I think they've been really reliable. We'll see 2 or 3 years down the line. And I think there's this thing that you know, if you're quick at the moment, there's a lot of these bikes floating around out there in the market, which are £200, £300, £400 below list price. And I think that that's because there's a lot of them in the UK. I think the supply has been really good, but also they are, you know, people are sort of still slightly wary of BSA, aren't they? So bikes have been bought and then they're coming back onto the market quite quickly. And I don't think that's because of any fault of the bike. I think that's just because of the sort of situation or the circumstance that people are in. So I think as a proposition, I don't think you can ignore this bike. I really don't. I think it's a good looking bike. Every time I've got it out of the garage, I thought, oh yeah, I can't wait to get on that. You know, she fires up and we go. Everything does have as it should. You know, you get a little slightly higher revs when you start it up, and it sinks back as the fuel and everything is set correct. It's just damn good. It's just damn good. Let's go out for the ride, and we'll do a bit more talking about there, and then we'll finish up on the road. But I think you could tell I quite like this bike. Anybody who's got one, I'm quite envious. Come on, let's go for a ride. So what has been the standout points then on this bike as I've been riding it around? That's what I did for you then. Well, first and foremost, I think it's the actual comfort of the ride. I think the suspension is excellent. I think it's just on the right side of firm. So, you know, when I come up to any, you know, drain covers and things, I'm not thinking, oh, this is going to hurt. And that's really quite important. The engine just revs and it just gives me more and more power. It just gives you, you know, it's almost like the perfect amount of power. You know, I think BSA have done extraordinary things with this little engine. You know, 335 cc's, isn't it? Or 334, something like that. Which I've always found very odd. It's a very strange capacity, isn't it? I always think people machine stuff and they put it together and say, well, what's the capacity? Oh, hang on a minute, I'll have a look. I'll get my measure out. But it just works. The acceleration, and I never run out of puff. You know, it just seems to, you know, to push on when I need it, when I want to do those overtakes, and then just push on a little bit, you know. It's just great. There's no harshness to it. I just feel I've got plenty to go. The one thing I would say, and this I sort of noted when I rode it to Coventry and back, or when I rode it from Coventry back home. I've got to do the same journey tomorrow. Is that I wish I had a taller 6th gear, and on that else it's got 6 gears, which is great, which is sort of one over the Enfield, isn't it? But yeah, having 6 gears is great. But I think if you're going to have 6 gears, make that 6th gear usable. in terms of, I just want to give me, you know, just a bit more legs. I wanted to be able to sort of cruise at 70, where I don't feel I'm working the engine too hard. I just want it to be, you know, a nice sort of chug along. If I've got sort of panels on the back, some bags or something, and I'm going a little bit of a tour, I could do that. But if I want to go on a major road, then I can do without any sort of concern. Now, I didn't have any concern, but I've said this before about touring on bikes, particularly smaller bikes. If you've got a rev that nads out of an engine, not that you are at 70 on it, but if you've got a rev that nads out of it, that's tiring. That's really fatiguing. When you don't want that, you want something that's going to be nice and calm at cruise speeds. All right, this isn't designed for that, I know it's not, but people will want to do that, and I think that's where the Enfields and their gearing, Enfield always get their gearing so good. And I think that could do with this, you know, maybe just change a cog on that sixth, or I suppose you would change your front sprocket on here. I don't know how much that would give you, but it might give you a little bit of something. And certainly that engine has got enough power to cope with that sort of change in sprocket. I love this little corner. But it just pulls and pulls, this engine. I know when I got back on the Hunter the other day, and I thought, oh, well, it's just enough pull, but it can't match this. It really can't. So, you know, lugging my big old Hulk around as well is pretty impressive for a little bike like this. The things that I do struggle with, again, is that clock. I know I keep coming back to it, but I think if you harp on about it enough, maybe BSA will do something about it. It doesn't need to be a complicated or expensive clock, just a decent analog clock. You know, take the one off the Gold Star, stick it on here, well, that'd be great. I don't need a rev counter. The rev counter's not important. You know, I just want a really nice speedo to look at, and one I can actually see and read. Instrument, so, you know, the actual switch gear is all good. I have no problem with that at all. It looks nice. It's a nice design. The one failing on it is the mirrors. You can see out the mirrors when you're not sort of moving along. Once you get over sort of like 30, you can't see anything out the mirrors because they're just vibrating. And that's not because the bike is vibrating. I'm getting no issue through the bike in terms of vibration at all. It's just that it seems to expel itself through the mirrors for some reason. I don't know, the law of physics. Some scientists will be able to tell you why that is. But apart from that, there's nothing else I don't like about this bike. There really isn't. I love the styling. I think because of the price, you know, I think it's a bike that you could buy and just customise a little bit to yourself, make it a bit more scrambler, get some decent tyres in it. Again, get some tyres which are a bit more, you know, upmarket, shall we say. There's nothing wrong with the tyres on here, but I think if you put better rubber on here, I think that will propel the actual bike to even, you know, sort of greater enjoyment, which I've done, you know, with my Enfield. So, you know, without a doubt, that'd be a good cheap option. But, you know, what else can I say about it? Do I think it's the best 350 out there at the moment for the money? I've got to say yeah. You know, and I've got the full suite of the J Series, and I love that J Series, you know I do. I think it's a great bike, and it doesn't stop those bikes being great because this one's better, or in my mind it's better. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that I think for the money and for what you're getting, I just think it's amazing. And yes, it's got a few little cheaper bits on, you know, the stickers on the engine cases, the piled arms and stuff like that. Yes, they are stickers, but it's $3.5 grand. You know, you're not going to get a gold, you know, a metal badge put on there for that. So I can forgive it all of that on the basis that it's such a joy to ride. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we want? I just want to get on a bike and actually enjoy it. I look forward to getting on it. And this I have for 2 weeks. Every time I think, oh, you know, when it's rained this week, I thought, oh, I can't really go on the Bantam. It's, you know, it's pouring with rain. And it's not because the Bantam won't handle it. I just, I don't want to get that wet. And when I say it's raining, it's just been like hammering it down. I won't go on anything, you know, in that weather. You know, just not even for the sake of YouTube. I'm hoping it's not going to rain when I take this bike back to Coventry, but we'll wait and see. all when these sort of little twisties and things, I'm just having fun. And that's the whole thing, isn't it, about biking? You should enjoy it. It should never be a chore. If your bike, you get to your bike and you, oh God, I've got this sodding bike again, pardon my French, because I don't swear. You know, that's no good, is it? And I think going on, when I was talking the other day about running your bike in, it's so fascinating to see what these bikes are like with sort of like 3, 4, 5,000 miles on, if they're running properly. You know, because you've got to think that it can only improve, can't it? At the end of the day. I really do. Right, well, I think you can guess that I'm actually rather enamoured with this little bike, and I still think if I was looking for another small bike, even though I'm sort of overloaded with bikes at the moment, I may well still buy one of these yet. You know, I may still get one of these, but I'll have to do something to the Meteor, which is still with me. Yes, it's still taking selling. So yes, it was supposed to have been sold, but that fell through. And I've decided to keep hold of it for a while now because it's my little donkey. I may, if I do get rid of that, and I want to, because I'm now needing bikes to swap over in France each sort of 6 months. Something like this would be pretty awesome to take down. But we shall see. Right. Thanks very much for BSA and Lucas Distribution for lending me this bike. It's been great. I've really loved it. And it will be coming back in one piece. That's the bad thing to say, isn't it? I shouldn't say that because it's like the kiss of death, isn't it? I'm going to enjoy a little bit more riding on this. But yeah, this is my pick of the 350s at the moment, regardless. All the others, and we're so lucky, aren't we, that all the other 350s in this sort of category are so damn good. And that's the thing, you've got to have a real unique USP now, haven't you? To sort of stand out above any of those now, because they're all such good bikes. But I think this just picks it for me. If it's my money and I'm standing in a queue and I've got 3 lined up, and if it's silver and yellow, I'd have this all day long. Right, thanks for everybody. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. See you soon.